friend? Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About That. Today was a very mentally taxing day at school. Struggling a little bit for sure, but I still wanted to get on here and record an episode. One, because I said I was going to, but I think today's topic is fitting. Today we're going to talk about just questions that you can continually be asking yourself to help you be a little bit more self-aware. Just like, I don't know, I just feel like being a little bit more like intrusive and just understanding yourself a little bit better. Just questions that you can ask yourself to just put things in different perspectives frequently. So let's talk about that. I have some written down, and I'll probably go on like a few tangents of like why I thought of these questions or how I think of them and like how they kind of relate to me. So we'll talk about the questions itself and then just kind of how they relate to me, I guess. So I guess we'll just go down the list and just see how it goes. The first one that I wrote down is, what's it like being on the other side of me? I feel like this is probably going to be a focal point for this episode. Something that I'm sure a lot of us struggle with is just not being able to understand why somebody responded the way that they did to a certain situation. And I think this question can kind of be like similar to the saying of put yourself in the other person's shoes. But rather than putting yourself in the other person's shoes in their situation, it's more of putting yourself against you. So like, yes, in their shoes, but like not just in their situation, but just genuinely on the other side of you in that situation. It's about to start raining, so if you hear the rain, I'm sorry, but so I just think that that's a really good question to ask yourself. Like, in that situation, the way that they responded, like, if I were to have been the one receiving that from me, like, what do you think that would be like? Like, I think about, like, when I say things and I'm like, oh, wow, I think back on that and I'm like, wow, that would have hurt me if I heard myself say that. And I think about that when, like, recording this podcast of, like, thinking about specific people listening. And I'm like, how would I feel if I was receiving that? While I try to, like, not necessarily care because I want to be, like, real and genuine on this, like, it is still super difficult to be like, what if my mom listens to this and, like, I said and talked about our broken relationship that we've had since I was 12 years old? Like, I can't think about that. But at the same time, like, imagining, like, how can I say this in a way that still gets my point across, but, like, still be received well, if that makes sense. I don't know. Yeah, I just feel like that's something that you can really ask yourself at the end of a conversation if you don't understand things, like, how would I have received that? But also, like, before you go into things, like, thinking about, like, a group project that I'm doing in school, like, okay, how can I approach this to be like, I don't think that's a good idea, or like, hey, I think that's great. Like, how do you feel like others should take what you just said or what you just did based on how you would have if you were the one receiving that action from yourself? I feel like that I might be confusing. Maybe you got it after I explained it the first time. But the next question is, if you stood before God right now and he asked you why he should let you into heaven, what would you say? That's a really hard question to answer. Because if you think about it, we're all imperfect human beings, one. But because we're imperfect, we sin all the time. And if the Lord asked me, like, why should I let you in right now? Like, it really puts things into perspective. Like, I don't know. Today, I struggled so much mentally and believed so many lies from the enemy. I don't know. But, I mean, the truth about the gospel is that he still loves us, even though, and like, he still loves me, even though I believed all those things today. And like, his truth in the word is still alive and still reaching people and still true. So I think that that's also a question to ask yourself, like, in this moment for me, like, if the Lord asked me right now, why should I let you into heaven? Like, wow, I really did believe all those lies that the enemy was telling me today. Like, you just start thinking about, like, wow, I don't know. Or you're like, oh wow, like, the Lord is so sovereign and kind, like, he healed me in all these ways. So now I can see that I made this progress today. Like, the Lord, like, healed me in this, and like, I can answer that question because of the grace that he's given me to allow me to grow more like him. I really hope you can't hear the rain right now, because okay, next question. Are they doing it wrong, or are they just not doing it how you would like? This question has been such a focal point in like the beginning stages of marriage, when like chores are being done and like you're cooking in the kitchen. Oh my gosh, like that whole thing. Like, if I'm not doing something the way that Kobe likes, am I doing it wrong, or am I just not doing it the way that he likes? And how do you go about that? And vice versa. Like, if you're in a group project and someone's not doing something the way that you want it to be done, or they're not wording things the way that you want it to be worded, is it wrong, or is it just different? And like, that's something that I think in the workplace, in relationships, in school, like in general, like you can ask yourself that and be like one, just ask yourself that question. Are they doing it wrong, or do I just not like the way that they're doing it? And if the answer is they're just not doing it the way that I would do it, they're not doing it wrong, then ask yourself, how can I learn from this? And how can we grow from this? Like, there's so many things that I've learned from Covey just because I've stopped letting myself think that he's doing it wrong, but because I've learned that he just does it different, and vice versa. Like, I'll see him be like, she likes it done this way, so I'm going to do it that way. It's not the way that I would do it for myself, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong. And also, he's like, this is just how I like it done, and I've become more okay with that. Like, laundry. I've changed the way that I fold shirts because it's easier for me to fold all the t-shirts the same way instead of mine one way and his a different way. The shirts are still folded, and that's something small and stupid, but I mean, there was a time where I'm like, why do you fold your shirts like that? Like, that's wrong. And he's like, no, that's wrong. And then we both just were like, okay, it's not wrong. We just do it differently. And so I'm just going to do it your way because your way looks better, even though my way is easier. But it doesn't matter because it's not one way or the other is right or wrong. So I encourage you to think about this question and ask yourself this when you're in a situation where you feel like you should correct someone, or when you feel like you should tell someone that they're wrong, or when you genuinely feel like you should fight for your stance. Like, just ask, like, okay, are they wrong, or are we just doing it, thinking about it differently? When at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. There are certain things that I will say, which we don't need to get into this early into the podcast, but thinking differently and being passionate about the differences, you can 1000% think that that person is wrong and stand up for that and it be different. But in certain situations, there are times where they're not wrong. Y'all just think about it differently. So, next question. Why do I allow them in my life, and why do I like them? So, I have a podcast coming up that I'm going to really dive deep into this topic. But why do you allow someone in your life? Is it because they bring joy to your life? Is it because they fill your cup? Is it because they challenge you? Is it because they encourage you? Is it because they help you grow? Is it because you trust them? Is it just because of a title, hello, that they have in your life? That's something that I'm going to talk about and make it its own episode. But why do you like them? Are they funny? Are they nice? Are they truthful? Are they fun to be around? Like, why do you like them? If the list of reasons why you like them is shorter than the reasons why you don't like them, then we can go back to the first part of that question. Why do I allow them in my life? Just let that sink in. And we'll talk about it a little bit more in another episode. Okay, next question. Why am I doing this? Do I like doing this? Is someone making me? The someone that is making you do something can be yourself for subconscious reasons. Why am I doing this? Why am I in grad school? Why do I work here? Why am I working out? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? Why are you doing this? Is the question. Why am I doing this? Do I like it? Do I like this school? Do I like the program that I'm in? Do I like OT? Do I like my job? Like, why am I doing this? Is it because I like it? Is someone making me? Is the someone that's making me myself because I don't want to disappoint other people? Is the person that's making me my parents because they think that this is what's best for me? Is the person that's making me my siblings because this is what they did and so I feel like I have to? Is the person that's making me do this myself because I feel like I have to? Like, I have to pay the bills, okay, but why am I doing this to pay the bills? Well, I want to do OT. Okay, well, why is this the way that you're doing OT? I feel like diving deep into those questions and those answers can really help you understand, like, if you're in the right place, if you're doing the right thing. Even a different way to answer that question would be like, why am I doing this? Why am I going to dinner with these people? Why am I sending this text? Is it because I want to, because I mean this? Is it because I really want to celebrate them? Is it because I really don't want the repercussions of not going? Is it because I feel like it would look good if I posted a picture about it? Like, why are you doing that? Next question. What is holding me back the most? So I think going back to the other question, why am I doing this, could go back to like, why am I not doing that? If there's something that comes to mind when you ask yourself, why am I doing this? And it's like, but I would rather be doing X, Y, and Z. Why not? What's holding you back? Is it fear of rejection? Probably. Is it fear of what other people are going to think about me? Probably. Is it fear of failure? Probably. I mean, it's probably one of them. Figure it out. Figure out which one of them it is. Think about it. And then ask yourself, what happens if somebody thinks negatively about you? What happens if someone rejects you, or a school rejects you, or a job rejects you? What happens if you fail? Okay, think about what's going to happen, how you're going to bounce back from it, and then go straight into it knowing, regardless of what's going to happen, I'm going to be fine, and I'm going to have more answers, and I'm going to have learned more from it. So I'm not going to let it hold me back anymore, because I'm going to be so much more free on the other side of that decision or the result. Okay, next. What are your core values? This can go and be related to the question about why I allow them in my life. Why do I like them? Do your core values align? Do you love God together? Do you love others together? I don't really know what other core values I have. I should probably ask myself that question and like really deep down think about the answer. But I know that I want to be around people that love God and love others. And those are two things that I will not budge on. And those are my core values, my top one and top two core values. And with that, like, I know where I stand on things just because of those two things. I know where I stand on certain political issues because those are my top two core values. I know where I stand on how others should treat me because of those two core values. I know how I should treat others because of those two core values. Now, I will say I fall short of that, but I know better, and I learn from that because I reflect on those two core values. You use your core values as a lens on how you see the world and how you see people and how you see situations, and also how you respond to them. So if you don't have a firm foundation of your core values, then how do you live life in a certain manner or with intention? Hello, y'all remember that episode? Living passionately about your core values allows you to live in intention when walking into things or when responding to things or just with yourself and your relationships. I think about the core values at our office that I work at. Like, we have those core values up to remind us, like, this is how we approach situations. This is how we do life with each other while we're in the workplace. This is how we respect each other. This is how we know that we're all on the same team because we're all mission minded about our core values. And that's how you should do life. Now, obviously, it's a little different because people at work don't necessarily live the same core values outside of work that they do inside of work. So find people that you are with outside of work that align with your personal core values, because those are the people that you want to do life with. Those are the people that will help you manage situations with people that aren't aligned in those core values because you have that foundation. Next question. These all kind of go together. How does their presence make you feel? How does the absence of it make you feel? And then reflect that back onto yourself. How do you think your presence makes them feel? So I think about when someone's not there, that's usually there, anywhere you go. If, the person that sits next to you in class isn't there, how does their absence feel? Are you glad because they talk too much? Are you glad because they fidget? Are you upset because they hold you accountable to pay attention? Like, how does it make you feel and why? If somebody's not there at work one week and you just feel so much better and everybody's in such a better mood because they're not there, their absence makes things better, makes things more joyful. And then when they are there, everybody's more tense. It's more hostile. It's less fun to be there. Like, I know it's work, but at the end of the day, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. And then reflect that back onto yourself. If I didn't show up to school one day, how would my peers feel? How do you want them to feel? Do you want them to be sad? No, probably not, but you'd rather them be sad than happy, I can guarantee you. Because if somebody's happy that you're not there, then that just shows what kind of presence you bring to the table, like what your presence brings. You want your presence and who you are and the abilities and skills that you have to add value to any place that you are. And if that's not the case, then like, why? Or how can you change that? And also going back to knowing who your people are, like have people around you that are willing to tell you that, like, hey, I'm not trying to be ugly, and respectfully, I love you so much that I want to tell you this, but when you were at community group the other night, it was great. And other people felt more comfortable to share. Or, hey, I know you love where you work, and I know that you love us, but when you weren't here that week, things were so much better, and people were smiling more. I don't know if you necessarily say it that way, but like, if I had somebody in my life that said that to me, I would receive it well, so maybe that's the way that I'm saying it, but know who you're talking to or whatever. So I think delivery is a big thing, but I also think who it comes from is a big thing. A lot of people take things personal, and that's another thing, is like, really take the time to reflect on what people say, the way that people look at you when you walk into the room, the way that people respond when you say stuff. Like, I feel like I'm pretty self-aware, and I can tell when I say something, like, that joke didn't hit. Like, let's not say that anymore. Maybe, like, fill it out a little bit after that, and maybe you should have a conversation and apologize. And then the last question that I'm going to digest a little bit is, if I was alone, how would I feel? And this is case by case, moment by moment, and also throw in there, like, if I was alone with them, how would I feel? Because I think personal one-on-one or small group settings are so important. But if I was alone with myself right now, which I am in my car, but if I wasn't imagining that I was talking to you, if I was in my car by myself alone, what would I be thinking? Would I allow myself to believe lies of the enemy again like I did today? Would I play worship music? Would I call my husband? Like, just think, like, sometimes I just think about, like, okay, when I go home, like, for example, if I go home at my lunch break and my husband's at work or at school and I go home, and I just think sometimes, I'm like, what am I going to do if I'm home alone? Like, you should be able to be by yourself and still be able to be a good human. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but think about this too. Like, if it's just you and blank, how would you feel? If it was just me and my husband, it'd be great. We'd laugh. It'd be great. It'd be so much fun. That's why I love being with him. And like, our dog, throw it in there, it's like a Mo, Larry, Curly situation. But if I was alone with blank, I would just sit in silence, because if I let anything come out of my mouth, I just know it would not be nice. I think it's good that I know that. If I was in a situation with X, Y, and Z, and it was just us four in a room, how would you respond? Now, sometimes don't get crazy and start thinking, well, if I was in a room with President, no, okay, that's probably never going to happen. But if I was in a room with my mom right now, how would I respond? Okay, based on how I feel like I would respond, if that situation came up, should I do it? Probably not. I just think, even in the moment, like, okay, your boss says, hey, can I talk to you for a minute in the office? Ask yourself, if I'm in a room by myself with her, how will I respond? Do you need somebody else in there? Do you feel like you can handle that well? If I have to have this conversation with my child, do I need somebody else in there to calm me down because they are about to make me lose my mind? Or can I have that conversation and be good for us to have it by ourselves, but I might need a few minutes? Anyways, some of these questions I think are really beneficial, and I will stand by that. For example, what are your core values? I feel like you should know that. How does your presence make others feel? I feel like it'd be beneficial for you to know that. So kind of going off of that, what would it be like to be on the other side of me? And then lastly, if the Lord stood before you right now and asked why he should let you into heaven, I feel like you should be able to answer that. Not every day, not every time, because we will always fall short, and we will always be in different situations where those questions are going to be hard to answer. For example, me today. But at least have them circling through your mind once or twice a day. Or reflect on them at the end of the day. For me now, realizing, wow, I am called to be a light in this dark place, and I believe the lies of the enemy all day. I just had to realize that 20 minutes ago. Now, some questions you might not need to circle around in your head all the time. If you feel like you're good at having conversations one-on-one on the fly, then maybe you don't have to ask yourself how you would respond to them right now and alone. Or maybe it's not relevant to you to ask why you do or don't do things because you already don't care about the approval of man, or you don't have fear of the world, or you don't have fear of rejection and failing. That is fabulous, and please comment on the Instagram how you do that. It is at Let's Talk About That podcast. So basically, some of these might not relate to you. Only 2 or 3 might relate to you. Only maybe 1. And I hope that might be the case, that this can help somebody in some way. I was really hesitant about having this conversation with you today because I am not in a great place, but I think those questions are great to ask yourself all the time, and I just felt like I needed to reflect, and I was like, why don't I just reflect out loud? And maybe this reflection helps somebody, maybe these questions help somebody reflect on their own and can stir up some conversations with people. If there's a question that you ask yourself that I didn't talk about, I would love for you to share that, and we can do maybe another episode, or comment and y'all can share it with each other. Comment, and we can just all figure this out together. I don't really know what we're figuring out, but we can figure that out together too. Anyways, I think this episode is about wrapped up. So I really enjoyed this. I hope that you enjoyed this as well. I will talk to y'all next week. Bye.